We have tons of news to discuss in today's video. We're looking at the latest trade talk around the NHL, including a potential deal between Vancouver and Ottawa. We also have some details on a potential trade that's being worked on between Calgary and New Jersey. We also have the latest update on the Montreal Canadiens. Several players are also been announced as being done for the season, including Christian Dvorak in Montreal. We have a waiver claim at the Vegas Golden Knights. We also have some big news from the NHLPA, big update on the World Cup, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news today. It's going to be a packed video with all kinds of nuggets from around the NHL. So it's one of those videos you're going to want to stay tuned all the way through to make sure you get fully up to date on all of today's events. Last night in the video, we discussed a suspension coming for Jason Zucker of the Arizona Coyotes. At the time of the recording, I knew he was having a hearing. I knew he was going to be suspended. We did not know how many games, but we did find out later last night after that video was already posted. And it turns out Zucker's been given 3 games from NHL player safety. I personally found that a little surprising. I thought it'd be 1 or 2, given the fact that Zucker has zero history whatsoever in the player safety department. He's never been fined or suspended in the past. Yes, this was a bad hit. There's no doubt about it. But, it's a case where I think the reason they went with 3 is because the player is injured. Nick Cousins is in concussion protocol, and he's going to miss some time. And to be honest, it's not even so much that I have an issue with the ruling here. It's more so the inconsistency. I just find we've seen Cousins himself lay some hits and do some things recently that were suspension worthy in my opinion, and he got nothing for it or get a little fine. And then you get other times where you get 1 or 2 games, but then, really the crime, in some cases, it should match the outcome of what happened, right? I mean, I have no problem. If the player that's injured is going to miss a bunch of time, then sometimes the suspension for the guy doing the crime should be a little stiffer, and that's fine. But he's got no history, and they just haven't always traditionally done this. So I was a little surprised. I think it's a little bit much. And we'll go from there. I'd love to know what everybody else thinks of the ruling for player safety regarding Jason Zucker. We do have a news from the waiver wire, including a claim. The Vegas Golden Knights today put in a claim to take Toby Bjornfoot, the young defenseman from the Los Angeles Kings, who was placed on waivers yesterday for the purpose of being demoted to the American Hockey League. Of course, they were trying to put Bjornfoot down so they can call up Brant Clark, and instead he's off to Vegas. Vegas is obviously dealing with some injuries and could use some help on the blue line. He's 22 years old. He's a former first-round pick back from 2019. Hasn't played a ton of NHL games, but he has been a fairly well-regarded prospect. So I'll be curious to see how this works out for Vegas and if he can get more of an opportunity there. Because of the injuries in Vegas, they've also recalled forward Grigory Denisenko and defenseman Lucas Cormier from their AHL affiliate in Henderson. Of course, Lucas Cormier, another player from my home province of New Brunswick. We don't have very many NHLers from the province of New Brunswick here. Of course, he's from Moncton, played his junior hockey with the Charlottetown Junior Club. So certainly nice to see him get his opportunity. Hopefully he gets to play and make his NHL debut. Lots of other news and notes from around the NHL regarding injuries and roster moves. The St. Louis Blues today recalled forward Jacob Verana. Of course, he'd been recently put on waivers and demoted, so we'll see if he can find his game coming back up. They've also sent down Alexandrov, and Justin Falk has been moved to injured reserve. The Pittsburgh Penguins today announced that forward Matt Nieto required knee surgery and is going to be out for approximately 2 months. He had a laparoscopic knee procedure the other day, recovering well, but it's about an 8-week recovery, so he will be out of action likely till early March would be my guess, maybe end of February. The San Jose Sharks, they also announced that defenseman Matt Benning, done for the season, required hip surgery, so that's a big recovery. He'll be out. He's probably looking at about a 4 to 6 month recovery time. So for the Sharks, in a season that's not going to be overly successful, there's no point in him trying to play through it. He'll be having surgery here in the next couple of days and be done for the year. The Lightning have placed defenseman Mikhail Sergachev on long-term injury reserve, so he's going to be out for a period of time. It will be a while coming back. And Montreal, also today, the Montreal Canadiens announced Christian Dvorak is also done for the season. He suffered a torn pectoral muscle, requires surgery, and will be out for the remainder of the season. Of course, Dvorak was a player who had some question marks about his future with the club. Really hasn't been the most greatest fit since they acquired him from the Coyotes, with the compensation they got from Carolina for the Kotkaniemi offer sheet. But he's also been hurt a lot. And at this point, there was a lot of talk that he could be traded. If he wasn't traded this year, it's possible for the offseason. And now that puts all of that into question, to be completely honest. I mean, obviously now he's not going to be traded if he's done for the season. Obviously he becomes an LTIR contract, and you could argue that maybe a team would want that kind of contract to exceed the cap, but Montreal is already doing that, and they are certainly going to weaponize their cap space to the best of their ability to keep building for the future here. But obviously that's going to put into question whether or not he can even be traded in the offseason. He does have one more year left on his contract, so it could be his last year in Montreal. Hard to say how things work out. But Dvorak being done for the season creates an opportunity for Montreal that we will discuss a little bit further in a few minutes' time. Also, with the Calgary Flames, good news on a potential return for defenseman Oliver Kylington. He's been sent down to the American Hockey League on a conditioning stint, which is good. The fact that he can go down, skate, and play is a step in the right direction. Both the player and the team put out statements today, basically to summarize Kylington's statement, essentially that his mental health is doing a lot better. And he's very thankful for the organization, teammates, friends, family, etc., being supportive and kind of helping him get there. And he's, excited to hopefully return soon. And the team statement essentially kind of echoed that as well, just saying that they want it to be very supportive and put the player first, which is good to hear. And, obviously when he's ready to play, he'll be welcome back, which is obviously what you'd expect. So Oliver Kylington could be a big piece of that team for the future. He hasn't played in a really long time, and to come back and play would be a nice boost for them, especially where there's lots of rumors about them moving a defenseman or two. Getting him back in could offset some of their exits off the team. So we'll see where that goes, but certainly nice to hear that Kylington's making progress and at least able to get down on a conditioning stint. If it goes well, then I would suspect he could make his, we'll call it his re-debut with the Flames. Maybe in a few weeks. Hard to say exactly. I didn't put a timeline on it just yet. In Philadelphia, I don't know the exact lineup, but it's expected that when the game starts tonight, that Cam Atkinson and Morgan Frost will both be healthy scratches. Frost has been in and out of the lineup, not really in the best books of Coach John Tortorella, and Cam Atkinson's been probably 4 to 6 weeks on a really downward cold streak, so makes sense that this would happen. We'll see what the lineup is like when they actually play tonight, but that's what the rumor mill was saying earlier today from Philadelphia reporters. The New York Rangers also recalled high draft pick and arguably the top prospect in the system right now, Brendan Othmann. He will make his NHL debut tonight as the New York Rangers set to do battle with the Chicago Blackhawks. Actually, they're probably about ready for puck drop as I speak right now. The NHL today also announced the All-Star selections from each of the NHL teams. Of course, the league themselves picks the first 32 All-Stars, one from each team. The remaining players, which I believe there'll be 12 in total, will be voted in by the fans. They were just announced here in the past couple of hours. The Eastern ones came out earlier tonight. The Western ones just came out during the first intermission of the Penguins and Bruins game on ESPN. Here is your list of NHL All-Stars here by conference. Now, keep in mind as well that they're not going to be playing as a conference this year. They're bringing back the captains and drafting, so it is going to be done via draft. So obviously that will be done at the later event when they're ready to play. So we'll see how things go. Obviously, there's going to be a skills competition that's revamped this year with actual monetary prize on the line as well. So let's get into first with your Eastern Conference All-Stars. Eastern Conference All-Stars were announced earlier tonight, including Carolina Hurricanes Sebastian Aho, New York Islanders Matthew Barzal. The Penguins will be rep by Sidney Crosby. Sabres got Rasmus Dahlin. The Red Wings was selected for Alex DeBrincat. The Devils have Jack Hughes. Boone Jenner, captain of the Jackets, was selected from his team. Flyers have Travis Konechny. Brady Tkachuk has been selected to represent the Ottawa Senators. Nikita Kucherov for Tampa. Austin Matthews for the Maple Leafs, David Pastrnak for the Boston Bruins, Sam Reinhart for the Panthers, Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers, Nick Suzuki for the Montreal Canadiens, along with Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals. Some of the top scorers in the league in the Eastern Conference not selected, including guys like Nylander and Panarin, for example. I would suspect they'll have a good shot at getting voted in. And, of course, some of these players may not go due to injury or whatnot, and there could see some substitutions made at a later time. The Western Conference team will consist of Connor Bedard, as a rookie, of course, having a phenomenal year, will represent the Blackhawks. Jack Eichel for the Vegas Golden Knights. Nathan McKinnon representing the Colorado Avalanche. Connor McDavid, of course, for the Edmonton Oilers. Philip Forsberg for the Nashville Predators. Frank Vatrano having a phenomenal year for the Anaheim Ducks. Clayton Keller for the Coyotes. Elias Lindholm for the Calgary Flames. Oliver Bjorkstrand for the Seattle Kraken. Tomas Hertl for the San Jose Sharks. Robert Thomas for the St. Louis Blues. Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota Wild, Cam Talbot for the LA Kings, Jake Ottinger for the Dallas Stars, and the Winnipeg Jets will be repped by goalie Connor Hellebuck. We also saw some pretty substantial trades, some blockbuster deals in the world of Canadian junior hockey today, including a couple of top prospects, former first-round picks, and members of Team Canada from the World Junior Championship team. Of course, their seasons are back in action here after Canada had an early exit, we'll say, from the 2024 World Juniors. But both these players were obviously former Winnipeg Ice players, and the team relocated to the Winnipeg Wild. Connor Geekie, of course, the big 6'4" first rounder of the Arizona Coyotes, has been traded from the Wild to the Swift Current Broncos. In return, the Swift Current Broncos give up 3 players and 4 draft picks. So that's a big haul for the Wild to move on from Geekie and his teammate, and not only in junior but in Team Canada, Matthew Savoy, traded to the Moose Jaw Warriors in exchange for 7 draft picks. Obviously, you see teams load up, trying to make a run to win their league championship and make it to the Memorial Cup. They give up huge amounts of draft capital year to year. So obviously in junior hockey is a different scenario than pro hockey. Every couple of years, they're always rebuilding. They get a good team. They can compete, try to win the league championship. And, of course, over time, all those players age out, either move on to the NHL, other pro leagues, or what have you, and they start over. So it's a case where this is a common, it might seem like massive returns, and they are, don't get me wrong, but these types of trades are not unusual in that realm of hockey whatsoever. We also got word today from ESPN reporter Kevin Weeks that the 2025 World Cup of Hockey, which might even go by a different name, I'm not even sure they're going to call it that, will indeed have 4 teams, but the NHL and the NHLPA are working at the World Cup to come next after that, which would be 2028, because they'd have 2025 World Cup. It was supposed to be 2024, not going to happen, get delayed. And then 2026 will be the Olympic year. So normally they want every 2 years there be an international competition. So it'll be 2025, then again in 2028, which they're hoping to have a much more expansive and normal World Cup with more teams and have games played not only in a host city, but across all 3 areas, including Canada, the US, and Europe. So you're probably looking at putting games in Sweden, Finland, or whatnot, maybe other areas of Europe, hard to say. So they'd probably have arrange the groups so that you have maybe Canada and the U.S. play a game or 2 in North America, and they could even include a couple of exhibition games as well before the tournament gets underway, and then have Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, Germany, whoever else is going to be participating, Russia, whatnot. I'm not sure if Russia will be involved because that's a big question mark right now. Have that going on over in Europe, and then have everybody meet up most likely in an NHL city, I would suspect, either in Canada or the United States, to finish up the tournament and have the playoff round. So we'll see how it goes, but it'll be a much more expansive tournament in 2028. And hopefully all is well in the world and they can have all teams, including the Russian players there. But we'll see. That's a long ways out. Hard to predict that. We're also expecting next week on January the 10th an announcement to come from the NHL Players Association in connection with the Mental Health Community of Canada and a new program to support players players. So I don't know the full details of it. Obviously, mental health is a huge part of everybody being healthy. And certainly we've seen more and more NHL players be open about their struggles with mental health. And they're human just like everybody else. It's a very common thing for people to struggle with. And, they're dealing with high pressure situations, and totally understandable how that can become an issue. And nice to see the NHLPA putting together a program to better support them. Obviously, if they need support in that regard and they need the player assistance program, they do have some resources at their disposal now. But nice to see them putting more of an emphasis on it and having probably a more detailed, more expansive program available at their fingertips should they feel they need assistance. We've seen Sam Jerard of the Avalanche be pretty open about his struggles with things, and obviously go through the player assistance program recently as well. So that's obviously they have some resources to help them now, but this is going to make it probably even another step further by the looks of things. Be curious to see the full details next week. We also had the big day at the World Junior Championships semi-final Thursday today. We saw Team USA do battle with Team Finland. The U.S. pulled off a 3-2 win. It wasn't looking good early on. Finland got off to a hot start, took a 2-0 lead. The second period was much better for the States. They battled back, got it tied. And in the third period, the refereeing, to be honest, in this game was completely way off. We saw the Finns get away with 2 or 3 high sticks to the U.S. players' faces, no calls. And it's like when you see that, and eventually they were able to, they kind of, realized because the U.S. players and the coaches wouldn't not let them hear it about it, that they were missing calls. And then eventually you saw both teams end up getting a power play that was really questionable calls. And it's game management by the referees, and you see it all the time, and it's stupid in my opinion, but unfortunately you do see that. When they miss calls, they try to make up calls when they know they screwed up, and it's exactly what happened here today. The U.S. took advantage of their power play, Finland could not, and that was a difference in a very important semifinal game. So to me, the referees got more too involved and made this way too more complicated than it needed to be. To be honest, if they would have called if they would have seen and made the calls of the stick infractions on the Finns earlier in the game, the U.S. might not have actually had to make it so tight and so close. They might have even opened it up more. Hard to say, but I just hate seeing the referees make calls like that. Drove me a little bit nuts, but at the end of the day, the U.S. gets the win. Cutter Gauthier with the game-winning goal. Jimmy Snuggerud with an absolute rocket to get them started there on the board. So a big game for the Americans, who are undefeated in this tournament, will play for gold against Sweden, who actually pulled off their semifinal win, which also was a very tight, close game against Team Czechia earlier in the day. They did pull away with a 5-2 win by the end of the third period, but it was close all the way through. Obviously, Czechia had their goalie out at the end of it, and Sweden was able to kind of seal it up. But Jonathan Lekkerimäki of Vancouver Canuck prospect, phenomenal tournament, scored a couple of big goals. Ostlund had another big tournament. Sandin Pellikka has been awesome for them as well. They're poised to try to win their first gold medal on home soil. So the gold medal game will feature the U.S. against Sweden, which was my original kind of prediction. And in my preview video for the World Juniors, I said I thought the U.S. and Sweden had the best chances to win gold, would probably be there. I said Canada, as much as I thought they could maybe make the final, were more likely going to lose. I thought maybe in the semifinals. They went out even earlier than I thought. And obviously the Slovak team went out earlier than I thought as well. The Czechs and the Finns, so like I said in that video, they're going to have something to say about it, and they would be the teams that I would be least surprised if they pulled off an upset, and they did do that a little bit. So great tournament so far. In the relegation game as well, Team Norway lost in overtime to Team Germany. It's a 1-game relegation. Normally it's a small series, so I'm not sure why they're doing it different this year. But the Norwegian team, it's first year in the group, and they'll have to go down a level after losing in relegation here today. Into the trade rumor section of the video, there's reports from the fourthperiod.com that the Devils and Flames are talking about a trade involving Calgary defenseman Noah Hanifin. We know Hanifin is very, very likely going to get dealt before the deadline. Just a matter of when and where. New Jersey has the contract of Dougie Hamilton on long-term injured reserve to boost their spending power, you could say, given that he's expected to not return the rest of the regular season with a severe injury, and Hanifin would be a great replacement. Obviously, he shoots the opposite way, but otherwise, a great defenseman, great skater, good puck mover, and they can use some more experience back there for sure. The Devils have had their ups and downs this year. I still think when it all shakes out in the end, they should be able to be a playoff team, but it's not like last year. They certainly took a little bit of a step back, and that Metro division's a little bit tighter than I certainly expected, which is fair. But, hard to say who would be the trade piece that they're willing to offer here. We know the Flames are looking for a good return on Hanifin. He's a good defenseman, doesn't make a ton of money, so it's a good contract to work with. I wouldn't think the Devils will be looking for salary retention. You never know. The more you ask for that, though, the more you got to pay. So I would suspect probably not. They do have some interesting young players. There was word that they might be willing to part with Michael McLeod, but those reports were kind of, I wouldn't say they were, told they were false, but they were kind of, toned down a bit. Essentially, I think if they came down to it for the right trade, they would consider it, but at the same time, it's not something they're out actively shopping. But they do have lots of other interesting young players that teams will certainly ask for. Whether or not they get the deal done and give up something substantial like that, I don't know. Obviously, the Flames are looking for some good young players to build around, so we'll see what they can work out there. There's been lots of talk as well about Andrei Kuzmenko in Vancouver. It looks like he's going to be another healthy scratch in and out of the doghouse with head coach Rick Tocchet. With the Ottawa Senators being where they are in the standings, it's expected as the season goes along before the deadline, they'll move at least a player or two, especially guys that are pending UFAs that are not expected to return. And one of those names that's getting some attention is Vladimir Tarasenko. Now, I wouldn't say it's an absolute given and he doesn't re-sign in Ottawa, but I think the odds are low. He signed for 1 year when he had an opportunity to take a multi-year deal elsewhere. So to me, I think he was looking for a 1 year deal to kind of show that he could still play at a high level, and then he'll likely seek a multi-year deal next year and probably end up going. So the odds of him getting moved, probably pretty good. I see a lot of chatter on social media about Kuzmenko for Tarasenko. And to be honest, I think if you're Ottawa, you might be open to that. I guess, if Kuzmenko can play like he did before and become a 40 goal scorer again or anywhere close, even 30 plus, that's a great deal for the Sens. Now, the rumor is that Ottawa would ask for more than just Kuzmenko because the Canucks are anxious to shed that contract in the extra year. So they might want a sweetener. But I know I've seen a lot of Canucks fans online really liking the concept of this, and they really want Tarasenko. And to be fair, I've seen Tarasenko play. I've seen all the Sens games this year. I've seen him play a lot last year. Good player, but he's not amazing. He's not what he used to be when he was younger. He doesn't play defense the greatest. I just don't know that he's going to be any better of a fit there than Kuzmenko is. He's not that style of player. If Rick Tocchet really wants a guy who's going to forecheck and be a harder player, Tarasenko is not your guy. Will he score similar amount of goals? Maybe. Right now Tarasenko has 8 goals in the season. Could he hit 25 this year? I don't know. I think that's probably about a high. I don't know if it'll go above that. Might be a little less than that. Hard to say. They haven't hit the halfway point of their season yet because they're still really behind in games played. If he can get to 10 to 12 by the halfway point, which is certainly reasonable, he'd have a chance to score somewhere between 20 and 25 for the season. I just don't know. That might be a steal for Ottawa. If Kuzmenko finds his game and can get back to being even a 25, 30 goal guy next year, that's a great deal for the Sens. And then if the Canucks take Tarasenko, I just don't know. And the other thing, too, is both have a form of trade protection. I don't know that Tarasenko is going to want to go to Vancouver. Last year he went to the Rangers. I just don't know that. I know when the report was when he was going to Ottawa in the first place, he wasn't real keen on going to Canada, period. But it was, I think, one of the higher numbers he was dollar-wise that he was able to get, and didn't see a long-term fit in a contract that was really coming together elsewhere. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll take the 1 year deal in Ottawa and we'll reevaluate. I just don't know. So we'll see. I just don't know if that's going to come together, but it's being talked about heavily on social media, so I wanted to mention it. And in Montreal, obviously, the Dufour trade is going to open some doors. We've seen Montreal reporters saying that the Habs, and Pagnotta was talking about this on the fourthperiod.com and his NHL network head as well. Obviously, Montreal likes to weaponize their cap space. The Dvorak injury is another contract that goes on LTIR, boosts their contract availability that they can spend above the cap. And at this point, they've already got some other names that are, we know they're looking to move guys like David Savard, possibly Jake Allen. We know the 3 goalie system's not working. We've talked about that extensively. And now they have a little bit more of ability to retain salary because they have a bigger pool that they can draw from LTIR. And if the acquiring team needs to move a contract, they have more of a option to take a contract on to help teams out and get a deal done. But that's not going to come at a cheap price. They're going to do that if they can get an extra prospect they really like or an extra draft pick that they really want. So don't be surprised to see the Montreal Canadiens be even more active than they already would have been because of this Dvorak injury. That's just going to open the door for more trades and obviously make it more likely. Now, as far as who all goes, we've heard anywhere from, like, Dvorak's name was out there. Well, that's not happening now. Sean Monahan's a question mark. It's possible. He's got a 1-year deal. Played well. There's definitely interest out there. So then you got Savard, you've got Jake. Besides that, I'm not sure you're going to see too much deals out of Montreal. I've seen Josh Anderson's name pop up here and there, but really, overall, he hasn't had a great season. Narrowly escaped a serious injury. It looked like it was bad the other night. He was at practice today, playing tonight, like everything's fine. So we got lucky there. But at the end of the day, I don't know that he's going to get moved. I just don't know that the interest would be there like it was before. He's had a struggle this year. So moving 2 or 3 veterans, very, very likely. But beyond that, hard to say. But like I said, in those deals, or they could be a broker for other deals, just look for the Habs to be even more active than before because of this injury, and it allows them to be more flexible on trading their veteran defenseman or veteran goaltender who have been heavily involved in talks and rumors over the past several weeks. So we may or may not see a deal too quickly out of Montreal. It's hard to say. Really boils down to when that offer comes along that they like. Ken Hughes is reportedly extremely busy on the phone all the time. Just a matter of when things come together. There's lots of time, but they will start probably seeing some activity, I suspect, later this month sometime. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.